The courtroom was dead silent as Officer Michael Carter, a seasoned cop with 15 years of service, stood there, handcuffed, hearing the devastating verdict, guilty. Despite his desperate pleas of innocence, the jury had spoken, and the weight of that sentence came crashing down. But the real blow wasn't the prison time. It was the crushing thought that he would never see his partner, his best friend, his K9, Luke, again. Luke, a German shepherd with eyes that had seen it all, had been his rock through every perilous moment on the job. And now, with everything falling apart, Michael knew he was about to lose the one thing that had always been there for him. With trembling hands and a voice choked with emotion, Michael looked up at the judge and made a final request that broke everyone's heart. "Your Honor, before I'm taken away, I just need to say goodbye to Luke." The room gasped in surprise. The judge paused for a long moment, probably feeling the weight of Michael's words. Finally, his voice broke the silence. 3 minutes, he said, granting Michael that last moment. In those 3 minutes, something extraordinary happened. The room was thick with emotion as Michael knelt, holding Luke close, whispering apologies he never thought he'd have to say. Tears streamed down his face as the bond between them became clearer than ever. It was a moment of heartache, love, and loyalty, everything Michael had left. But then, just as the silence settled in, something extraordinary happened. Luke, ever the attentive partner, suddenly began sniffing frantically at Michael's jacket. His nose twitched, and before anyone could react, Luke let out a sharp bark, his body tense. Confusion spread across the room as the dog continued to paw at Michael's jacket, refusing to let go. The tension was unbearable. What was Luke trying to tell them? As an officer stepped forward, cautiously pulling at the fabric of Michael's jacket, the sound of something small and metallic hitting the floor echoed through the courtroom. The room went still. It was a recording device. The prosecutor's face drained of color as the officer picked it up, holding it up for all to see. The whispers started. What did this mean? Without missing a beat, the judge ordered, "Activate it," and as the officer fumbled with the device, the courtroom held its collective breath. A crackling static filled the room, followed by muffled voices. And then boom, the unmistakable words pierced the silence. "Just plant the evidence. Carter's clean record makes him the perfect scapegoat. Get it done." The room erupted. Gasps, murmurs, and stunned expressions filled the space. Michael's heart stopped in his chest as he recognized the voice. It was Captain Ray Harding, his mentor, his supervisor, the man he had trusted, the man who had framed him. The betrayal hit harder than the conviction itself. The judge's gavel slammed down. The case was reopened, and with it, a newfound hope for Michael, and the start of a journey to expose a deadly conspiracy that ran deep within the force. Back in his holding cell, Michael sat in stunned silence, the weight of what had just been revealed slowly sinking in. Captain Harding, his mentor, the man who had guided him through his career, had betrayed him in the most unimaginable way. But it wasn't just about framing Michael. Harding was tangled up in something much bigger, a conspiracy that stretched far beyond Michael's arrest. The betrayal stung, but it wasn't just personal. It was a betrayal of everything Michael had believed in. He had trusted this man, and now, the entire system that he'd dedicated his life to was coming undone. Outside the cell, the investigation was moving at full speed. The judge, a man now determined to expose the truth, was delving deep into Harding's past, uncovering troubling connections to organized crime. This was bigger than anyone had imagined: corruption, bribery, and manipulation running deep within the very department meant to uphold justice. Meanwhile, Sarah Mitchell, Michael's trusted colleague, was stepping up to the plate. Taking Luke under her wing, she knew that the dog's incredible instincts were far from over. Luke was no ordinary K9. He had always been attuned to things others missed. And now, his sharp nose was leading them straight to Harding's office, sniffing out what was hidden from the world. Inside Harding's office, Luke's nose went to work, darting from one corner to the next. Sarah watched in awe as the dog unearthed crucial evidence, his paws tapping on a file drawer. With trembling hands, she opened it. And there it was. Photographs showing Harding meeting with known criminals, along with a document detailing a series of bribes that linked him directly to Michael's case. Harding had been playing both sides, manipulating the system for his own gain. The room felt colder now. Sarah knew that what she had found was just the tip of the iceberg. They were close, so close to uncovering a massive cover-up. That could bring down the entire department. But they had to act fast. The more they uncovered, the more dangerous the situation became. Luke, ever vigilant, stayed by Sarah's side, his calm, steady presence reassuring her that they were on the right path. But deep down, they both knew that Harding wasn't going to go down without a fight, and the full scope of the conspiracy was still a dark mystery waiting to be revealed. The deeper Sarah and Michael dug, the darker the truth became. It wasn't just Harding. They were uncovering a sprawling, deeply embedded web of corruption that reached far beyond what they had imagined. The bribery, the manipulation, the network of criminal activities entwined with the very department that was supposed to uphold justice, it was all connected. And it was only a matter of time before someone noticed they were getting too close to the heart of it. Then came an anonymous text, cold and threatening. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." The words hit like a punch to the gut, a stark reminder that they were not just dealing with rogue officers. This was a dangerous game, and the stakes were higher than they had ever realized. But despite the warning, they couldn't turn back now. Not after everything they had uncovered. Not with the truth so close to the surface. With renewed determination, they pushed forward, piecing together the final pieces of the puzzle. But just as they were on the verge of exposing the full extent of the corruption, the unthinkable happened. In a flash, their investigation was met with brutal resistance. Masked assailants stormed into their safe space, guns drawn, intent on destroying the evidence that could bring everything crashing down. Chaos erupted. Michael instinctively grabbed Sarah and pulled her to cover, his eyes scanning for any way out. But they weren't alone. Luke, ever the protector, leapt into action with the speed and precision only a K9 partner could possess. With a guttural bark, he charged at one of the assailants, taking them down with incredible force. Michael's heart raced as he saw Luke's jaws clamp onto the intruder's arm, holding firm and preventing any escape. In that moment, it wasn't just a K9 partner, it was the embodiment of loyalty, courage, and survival. The attackers, stunned by Luke's ferocity, tried to regroup, but they were met with fierce resistance from Michael, who wasn't about to let anyone take what they had worked so hard to uncover. As Sarah grabbed the crucial files, the fight intensified. The attackers were relentless, but Michael and Luke were a team, a force to be reckoned with. With one final, calculated move, they pushed back the intruders, forcing them to retreat. The evidence was still safe, but the message was clear. They weren't just exposing corruption. They were fighting for their lives. But this was just the beginning. The conspiracy was far from over, and the danger was escalating faster than they could prepare for. As the dust settled and the team caught their breath, they knew one thing for certain. Whoever was behind this, they weren't done yet, and neither were Michael, Sarah, and Luke. After narrowly escaping the violent ambush at the precinct, Michael, Sarah, and Luke had no choice but to retreat to the safety of a hidden cabin deep in the woods. The safe house, a small, isolated refuge, was their only option as they continued their fight to expose the corrupt network threatening their lives. The weight of what they had uncovered hung heavy in the air. They were closer than ever to bringing down the entire criminal operation. But they knew the danger wasn't over, not by a long shot. As they settled in, working through the files and evidence they had risked everything to protect, a sense of unease settled over them. They were being watched. The conspiracy had its eyes on them, and it wouldn't be long before the conspirators came for them. Their time in hiding was short-lived. It wasn't long before the unmistakable sound of footsteps in the woods broke the stillness of the night. They were here. Michael's instincts kicked in immediately, his heart pounding in his chest as he motioned for Sarah to take cover. Luke, ever alert, stood by his side, his eyes scanning the surroundings. ears perked for any movement. Then, without warning, the door was kicked open, and a storm of gunfire shattered the silence. The attackers were here. It was a deadly standoff, no more hiding, no more running. This was it. Michael moved fast, his weapon steady in his hand as he returned fire, taking down one of the assailants. Sarah, with a look of grim determination, grabbed the critical files and bolted for cover, the papers she'd been fighting for now more important than ever. But the real hero of the night wasn't Michael, it was Luke. With a powerful growl, Luke lunged at one of the intruders, his teeth sinking into the man's arm and taking him down with incredible speed. The attackers were stunned, but they weren't backing down. The cabin turned into a battlefield, with Michael and Sarah trying to hold their ground while Luke worked tirelessly to protect them from any threat. As the fight raged on, Michael and Luke pushed back the attackers, forcing them to retreat. It was a moment of pure chaos and intense survival, but they weren't alone for long. The distant sound of sirens began to echo through the trees. Backup was on the way. Just as the attackers began to regroup, law enforcement arrived in full force, taking down the remaining assailants and securing the cabin. The evidence was safe. The fight was over, at least for now. As the dust settled, Sarah wasted no time. She knew exactly what had to be done. She rushed to a trusted journalist, delivering the files that would expose the entire corrupt operation, from the top-ranking officers involved in the conspiracy to the powerful criminals pulling the strings behind the scenes. The story broke like wildfire, a national expose that brought the entire network crashing down. Arrests were made at every level, and the truth about the department's darkest secrets was laid bare for the world to see. Michael, once wrongfully convicted, was now hailed as a hero for his bravery in the face of corruption. But for him, the victory wasn't about the fame, it was about justice. As Michael stood at the door of his home, watching Luke chase after a ball in the yard, a sense of peace washed over him. The battle had been long and hard, but together, they had won. Luke had been with him every step of the way, his loyal partner through every twist and turn. They had earned this moment of peace. But Michael knew that the fight for justice wasn't over. It had only just begun. With Luke by his side, they were ready for whatever came next. Together, they would always fight for the truth. Michael stood at the front door of his home, watching Luke run freely in the yard, his tail wagging with unbridled joy. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over everything, and for the first time in weeks, Michael felt a deep sense of peace. The weight of the past few months, the wrongful conviction, the betrayal, the danger was finally starting to lift. He was free. Luke was free. And the corruption that had nearly destroyed them both was exposed for the world to see. As Michael watched his loyal K-9 partner chase after a ball, the bond between them felt unbreakable, forged through years of service, danger, and the kind of hardship that only those who had been through it together could understand. It had been a long road, but together, they had fought for the truth. And now, justice had been served. Not just for Michael, but for every officer and innocent person who had been silenced or wronged by the conspiracy. Michael's heart swelled as he watched Luke, knowing that this moment of peace, of normalcy, was theirs to savor. But even as they stood there, side by side, something deeper lingered in Michael's mind. This fight, this battle for truth had only just begun. They had uncovered a small piece of the puzzle, but there were still layers left to reveal, still stories to be told. And as Michael gazed down at Luke, he knew one thing for sure: whatever came next, they were ready. They had proven time and time again that together, they could face any challenge, uncover any secret, and fight for the truth. With Luke by his side, there was no obstacle too big, no fight too difficult. The next chapter of their journey awaited them. But for now, they could enjoy this moment, knowing they had earned it. Whatever happens next, we've got this, buddy, Michael whispered, scratching behind Luke's ears as the dog looked up at him with those wise, knowing eyes. Together, they were unstoppable. If you enjoyed this heartfelt story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more amazing tales. Your support keeps us going.